What is up, everybody? Welcome to Comic Book Club. I'm Alex.
I'm Justin.
I'm Pete.
And we are coming to you live from a couple of places on the internet. We're live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, Kick. Love that Kick. We're also, maybe you're listening later, wherever you get podcasts. If so, you can get ad-free versions of this podcast and all the podcasts we do at patreon.com/Comic Book Club. And
Alex, at the beginning, you always say maybe you're speculating about where people are listening, and I think you should make a definitive statement about it. And for those of you listening, rollerblading down Venice Beach week, on the sidewalk,
like I was looking. That's crazy.
For those running and listening on a podcast, keep it up. You're doing great.
Yeah, analytics said that like number 1 is roller skates on Venice Beach. Number 2 is chillin' by da pool, is what it's on.
Oh, like DA?
Very different experience.
Sweet. And third is Spotify while they're driving.
Oh. Right.
Not as exciting.
10 and 2.
That's what the stats said.
10 and 2.
Chillin' by da pool is a lot
Father's Day, gentlemen.
Is a lot like going under the seat. Thank you, Pete.
Thanks, Pete.
Really
and a happy Father's Day to you as well.
I'm an uncle, a funkle,
you just
if you will.
Popped a beer, right? You're the father of a proud beer.
There we go.
Yeah.
I'll drink to that.
And over the course of our lives, we slowly drink our children.
Were you showered with gifts and lavished for Father's Day?
Lavished. Not a word I used, but it was nice. Got some gifts. Got to go out with some other dads.
Ooh, a dad date?
My wife was like, why is it on Mother's Day like I spend time at home and you go away? And I was like, I don't know.
Because it's Father's Day.
I don't know why.
I saw a Mets game the night before with a bunch of dads, but then on...
And was that a punishment
we
for
know,
you?
guy.
I like the Mets.
We got it, dude. Yeah. Holy crap.
I will say, I mean, not to turn this into Sports Book Club, but I will say, I think I mentioned this in the Discord, one of the weirdest plays I've ever seen in my life, the pitcher, so dude bunts it, pitcher comes up, grabs the ball, and it like very easy out at first, and instead he goes to throw it and it rolls back over his glove, like the thing you're doing when you're fake throwing to somebody.
Like a yo-yo?
Was he doing
crazy.
a trick?
He was doing a trick. It was crazy. It was the weirdest thing.
Were you watching the Bananas instead of the Mets?
It was the Harlem Ball Trotters.
Wow.
Good.
You were so
I like
close.
you're in your
Globe
infancy
Trotters.
of being a baseball fan, and I like where you're going here.
I don't like this. I've been a Mets fan for a very long time. I've been to dozens of Mets games.
I don't believe it. You've never seen the old trick play on the bunt, so I don't believe it at all.
Also, you have hats for all sorts of stuff. No Mets.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm a fair weather Mets fan.
There it is.
Yeah. But I used to go all the time when I was a kid. I've talked about that on the show. You guys just don't listen to me. But do you know who you do listen to as our amazing guests here on the show? Very excited to talk to you, this first guest. He is the writer behind the excellent current run on Storm over
it's been amazing.
Marvel Comics. Ladies and gentlemen, Murewa Ayodele.
Welcome.
Hello.
How are you?
Hi, guys. It's been fun listening to you guys backstage. It feels like it feels really special, you know.
Well, hey, glad to have you. You are doing an amazing job. I just wanted to up top say thank you so much for all your work. Storm has been just such a pleasure every time we talk about it and get a chance to read it. It's been fantastic. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I have one question though.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Anytime I watch this live stream here, I always wonder, like, do you guys quickly read your comics before you upload the review, or you've already read the comic by this time?
Yeah, already read the comic.
Piercing the veil.
These are the hard questions.
We've already read it. We can tell you. Don't tell anybody else, though.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because I was always wondering, these guys are so fast. Yeah.
We're fast.
Yes, we tape this live show, and then in 5 minutes we read 30 to 40 comics we're reviewing for the week. Then
we quickly drop it in. Those takes just roll out.
Yeah. So listen, before we get into it, I do want to mention every week on the show, we have a professional chef down in New Orleans named Brett Macris, a.k.a. Pete.
Stray Bullies.
There you go, who runs a amazing restaurant called Shift down in New Orleans. And he either creates or curates a cocktail for us based on one of the guests. And this week he made a storm cocktail, a queen, a goddess, a storm. It is gin, limoncello, lemon juice, ginger honey syrup, sea salt, and lemon peel. It does indeed seem, to me at least, a cocktail fit for a goddess. So there you go.
Yeah.
Nice.
Very nice.
Yes. But let's talk about the comic book proper, because we have been absolutely loving that book. So this is part of the new From the Ashes line of the X-Men, sort of like the capsule state that it's currently in rather than the overall event. But one of the things that I will speak for myself, but I think I speak for Pete and Justin as well, that I've been really loving about the title is... and this seems like such a simple thing in comics, but we see it so rarely, is the razor focus on the issue as the issue. Like, you are telling this overall big story of Storm. She is now has cosmic powers from eternity. There's ongoing things with the U.S. government that are rolling off X-Manhunt. So there's a lot of ongoing stuff, but you seem very focused on delivering what is the story I'm going to tell over the course of these 20 to 22 pages. Was that something, I mean, is that just naturally you as a writer? Was that something you sat down and said, I'm going to try to do a Storm? How did that happen?
It's a combination of two things. Number one, when Tom Brevoort brought me on, he literally had this old document and he's like, yeah, every issue must have a self-contained story. Like, everyone must follow this rule kind of thing. So that was that. So there was no opposing the boss on that one. So
Good.
that's
Smart.
Strong.
So like every issue, say he has like these three questions he has to ask, like, oh, what's the problem? Was the problem solved? How did the hero solve the problem? And your script must answer all those three questions. There's that, and also I'm heavily inspired by animation. Because I love animation a lot. So even when I write for comics, it's still an animated stuff that plays in my head. And sometimes when I read comics and I try to remember them, I don't remember pages. I remember them as almost moving as animation.
Wow.
Oh, like sequences.
Cool.
Yeah. So,
That's awesome.
So your brain animates it for you. That's cool.
Yeah. So it's also why I structured that way. They all have these title pages that you see in shows, where you have title cards. That's why Storm has those title pages where you have the big title and the credits, behind it. So everything is structured that way, and so it's why that's has that self-contained episodic feel, even though it's also serialized, trying to tell this big story that every episode, bleeds into each other.
Well, let's. I just wanted to ask as a follow-up about Storm, sort of also when you're coming into the title, before we're, sort of getting towards where we are in the title currently. This is also, I feel like, a big responsibility, and Tom Brevoort has talked about this a lot, where, like, they want to elevate her. They want her to be that top-tier A-list character. She's on the Avengers now. She's got a solo ongoing book, which you're writing. I imagine, first of all, that's a fair amount of pressure to be like, no big deal, just make her into an A-list character real quick. But what is your take about her? What makes her special to you as a character?
Yeah, you're completely correct. That was basically the mandate. The mandate was, make her A-list. That was basically it. So it gave examples of real life personalities like Beyonce and Oprah Winfrey, and and of characters in the comics, people like Spider-Man, Daredevil. So I tried injecting, different aspects of what makes a character last long as a solo hero, try to give her a base, try to give her own cast, a supporting cast, and different things like that. But one of the things that stood out to me that I wanted to focus on is number one, I there's the mutant metaphor, and I think every X-Men story has that. But if she's to stand out on her own, she needed her own thing too, So, and that's why I wanted to also lean into the mythical side of Storm, the fact that she's a goddess, and let us discuss what it feels like to be a goddess. For Thor, we understand what it means like to be a god. He's an immortal. He's been alive for thousands of years. But what does it mean to be a goddess that is mortal, and that's something I wanted to explore. I also wanted to explore something about people coming from nothing and trying to make something of their lives. Storm is popularly known for being an orphan, living in poverty and having to steal to survive as a kid, and finding a way to be the queen of Wakanda, the most civilized, society in the Marvel universe. So what's what kind of spirit does this woman have to be able to find herself, grow herself from that side to that side? I think I saw some people try to argue, when someone said, Storm doesn't, someone was trying to be insulting, and the person defending too doesn't know that the person insulting is actually kind of correct. That Storm technically is not formally educated. We've not seen any issue, any panel where we've seen actually go to school, like high school and all this stuff. And yet we'll see her have conversations, we'll see her, you know, um, have interactions of such high level of education against someone that is extremely educated like T'Challa, and not
Yeah.
be overcome. I think there are some comics where she beats T'Challa even in chess and strategy,
Yeah.
and things like that. And it's like, how is she able to do that? She's just incredibly self-taught and disciplined, and trying to explore that. And how do you break a disciplined person too? You try to bombard the person with so much things. And that's why the comic also feels like that. There's the Thunder War, there's the cosmic thing, there's the FBI, there's everything. Like, we're going to break that discipline out of you. So it's all these characteristics I'm trying to bring out. Yeah.
And perhaps the most important one, Omega Maggot.
Yeah.
That feels like, was there a mandate on having him in there hanging out, fighting fighting people?
There are different reasons why I put my guts there. Number one is a petty reason. Um, there's this podcast. I think you guys have mentioned it on your show before, by David Appa, sketched. Yeah, and
Yeah.
they always do like this best comic of the year list. And a friend of his favorite character is Maggot. And I'm like, you know what? Just so that I can be on the list and be the number one on the list, I put Maggot there.
Good.
Yeah.
That's
Gaming
what.
the
Smart.
system.
Well,
Yeah,
what you were just talking about, the big scale that you have here. What impresses me about the book so much is like the bigness and then the detail, like going from like the more abstract moments with eternity all the way down to that one-on-one interview with this alien that you created when the prosecutor. The detail of that character, I loved that. And so like, what is your process like going from big to little in that way?
I One of the things I also noticed as a creator trying to find my own in is that a lot of creators, not that there's anything wrong or right with it, it's just the approach is that we try to go little, try to go personal, which is all good. But I've seen that, there are few people that tend to go big, you know. We've seen like Donny Cates and Ickman,
Yeah.
Jeff Jones, but not many people try to go to that scale, In fact, I've got a lot of criticism for going to that scale. Like, oh, you're just going OP and being a manga fanboy, But I wanted to say we can tell stories like that with Storm. I felt
Yeah.
like a lot of
Yeah.
stories have disserviced her because they are trying to tell small scale stories when she's an Omega level mutant. So she always feels out of place in a lot of events. Because you look at a lot of events, are like, Storm would have just ended this event in like 5 minutes. So, and it's like, let's put her in let's tell some stories where she will feel threatened, where it matches her scale, where it's bigger. And at the same time, we don't want to lose our humanity. We don't want to lose the emotions. And So we make sure that we connect everything back to the little, just to touch base back with the emotions. And so it's some of the stories I always like. It's stories like Lord of the Rings, all those epics where you can say this big thing that has happened across time for 1,000 years, and at the same time the victory is won because Sam was able to lift Frodo up the
Yeah.
mountain. So those are the kind of stories I've always loved and enjoyed and tried to put in the stories. Balance of the big and the small.
Well, to that point, you're going to be about to get pretty big in the title with Thunder War, which is kicking off in Storm number 10. That comes out on July 23rd, and it's running through issue 12. You got art on the first issue by Lucas Werneck, who has been your faithful partner thus far, and then the other two parts have art by Mario Santoro. But let's talk about that a little bit. What's kind of the pitch for Thunder War, and why have this 3-part event? Not spinning out, but sort of like taking it to another level, like you're talking about.
Again, it's also me being trying to almost quote unquote educate how I think Storm should be handled moving forward. I think Storm has been done a disservice in a lot of events. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do like my own events, even though it's just in one book. And let's see how the scale, so it's going to be a story centered around the cosmic entities like eternity, infinity, the one above all. They're going to be involved, and at the same time we're going to have the thunder gods in the Marvel universe involved. We're going to be introducing some of the new ones we've not seen. We've seen Shango, we've seen Mamarangan. We're going to see some new ones, like Suga. It's this dragon-like thunder god,
cool.
They're like, it's nice. We're going to see Beta Ray Bill, and it's just really fun stuff, So it's like issue 11 starts with we have Council of Reeds, from Fantastic Four.
Sure. Oh yeah.
Here we have like this Council of Thunder Gods, where the Thunder Gods are in this big Colosseum kind of thing, and they're having meeting about Storm, and the argument gets heated up, and Susano and Beta Ray Bill exchange words, and Beta Ray Bill is like, I'm going to smash your face with this armor, and it's crazy stuff. It's going to be really, really epic and nice, and I'm going to see at some point Beta Ray Bill is going to ride on Suga as a dragon in the finale. It's just crazy metal stuff that I just want to have fun and be like, we can have events of this magnitude with this character, and they can express all their power, their energy, and it will still not be enough, and trying to do that in this solo title. So it's really fun stuff.
I mean, your enthusiasm, I feel like just talking to you is so awesome. And I feel like that translates so hard to the book. You can just feel the energy just coming through every bit of it. And man, it's really refreshing.
Yeah, you feel the Storm book, man, and you're doing a heck of a job. So again, just thank you so much. I'm sorry, Alex.
Not to just keep hyping
I was just going to point out in terms of
the
keep plussing up on the fun train. Just looking at the covers here, the first one has her riding on the Silver Surfer's board. The second one, she's riding on a hippo type beast.
Yes.
Third one, they're having a big fight in front of Galactus's skeleton. So I feel like it does tie into this thing that I believe pretty strongly about comics, which is like they work best when you're just like, what is the most fun choice? What's the most ridiculous thing we could do here?
Yeah. What if we went 100 miles an hour?
No brakes.
Yeah, exactly. All gas from our Storm right here.
Well, let's talk about this guy. For anybody who's just listening to the podcast, we're looking at some designs by Lucas Werneck. This is Haddad, who is, I believe, the villain in the arc, or potentially the villain. You could probably talk about that more. What was important about him and working with Lucas on the design of this character?
Is the Mesopotamian storm god. While I was working on this series, trying to do my research, looking at, Storm is like the youngest, newest storm god. That's what we know. But try to look back at who's the oldest one that we know in record. And in real life mythology, it's Hadad. A lot of the stories that we know about him seems like it was even borrowed by other civilizations. We see the fact that he fought Lotan, a serpent kind of creature. We see that it's kind of inspired Zeus fighting creatures
Yeah.
like Typhon. Inspired Susanoo fighting Yamantorochi. You see it going to even Indian mythology and so many things like that. Like, okay, so if this is the first storm god, let's make him the villain, the old versus the new, and let's find a link between them. And something we're going to discover in the story is that he was a former host of eternity. So why did it turn evil? Why does he want the death of the universe? And we've seen everything Eternity has been doing to Storm. It's not been nice. It's not been good. So how bad did it go with Haddad? And we can almost understand that he there's a grudge there, and now Storm has to defend almost like an abuser against this person that's probably even justified for
Oh, yeah.
wanting to end everything. So yeah, that's and when it came to the design, we're like, we want to find a way to make it cool, want it to be cool, we want to have cool design, want it to look intimidating, and at the same time be very respectful to the culture that it's from,
Yeah.
and also some of the myths, like the bull horns should still be there, and to have that Mesopotamian aesthetics like the beards and the gold, and so we try to balance everything, cool factor versus authenticness. We also have a weapon used that is taken directly from a carving of Baal Hadad that I was seen, where he's holding like this spear that has thunderbolts at the end. Everything we take from real life mythology and mixed a little with like comic book aesthetics, and it's been cool and fun working on this.
I wanted to ask you a little bit more about the art here, just because Lucas Wernick's work is so stunning in this book. There's at least one page every issue that is just jaw dropping.
Yeah, where you're just kind of blown away.
So again, like just working with him on crafting this and how potentially his work and knowing what his strengths are drive you in terms of the story, and then also since you have Mario Santoro on these next two parts, what changes, if anything, in terms of how you're approaching the title?
The thing is, both artists are kind of like beasts on their own.
Yeah.
And we kind of prove it to the audience so that the audience is not worried that we have multiple artists for this event. In issue 8, I believe, issue 8 was drawn half and half, where Lucas draws the first half and Mario Santoro draws the second half.
Cool.
And you can see how badass both artists are. Like, they don't have any issue drawing anything. So it's and writing for them, almost you don't feel hindered. You feel free to like go as crazy as you can, and they're like, hold my beer, and they pull it off. So I've not really had an issue like trying to fine tune things for them. It's just go crazy and we got you. So that's how
Nice.
that's how my experience has been working for Lucas. For example, some artists don't like drawing animals, but if you see Lucas's hippos, they're like spot on, they look perfect, they are cool.
Yeah.
And if it's about fashion, the fashion is popping, the designs are cool, the cosmic entities look awesome and epic. So he can, and at the same time, he can draw the very emotional acting scenes. So he's an all-star. Mario is an all-star. They're just killing it, both of them.
I feel like you should put "Go Crazy, We Got You" on the title, on the front of every book, every cover of this book. I feel like that's the vibe of that you are bringing, that they're bringing. It's like, buckle up.
Yeah, and Alex Guimaraes, the colorist, has been like the MVP behind everything, making everything pop, making everything sing. If you see the line art and see the colors, you would see how much work he puts into every page to just make it sing and have this ethereal feel. And once you see the Thunder War issues, you know that everybody even like went up a notch. Like it's way crazier this time. It's way more epic. It's really, really awesome stuff. Wait till you see Mario's illustration of Zeus. You're like, oh my god, Zeus has never looked this hot and epic and majestic.
Zeus.
You know?
Oh man, can't wait.
Just to take a little bit of a swerve, to get back to the conversation about Storm being bumped up to the A-list, though argument there is she always was, just didn't necessarily have that push behind her. But the other half of the equation is her being on the team in Avengers. Maybe this is just up to Tom Brevoort, editing and, overseeing both of those things. But is there any coordination between you and Jed MacKay in terms of making sure you're not really crossing the streams?
It's not been too difficult because he's also writing X-Men, so we're on the same X-Office Discord server. So I'm like, Jed, I just made Storm this, FYI, and that's all. And another thing that also helps is that I think the current Avengers series so far is, time-wise, it's behind most books. If you notice, you will see Iron Man still using like the old armor while other books have moved to the new armor. So it's telling like the stories behind. So I'm free to like lead the charge and change things, and he would just reflect them in a story as it's moving. So the fact that we're not happening at the same time also helps with the coordination. Like if it's the same time, it might be more difficult and stuff, but because its time zone is like behind, so it's easier to just keep blasting off.
Right. And this, I know this is very far ahead because we've got July, August, September, but do you already have plans percolating for beyond Thunder War, for what sort of like the next act of Storm is after that?
I'm already getting pages for that.
Oh, wow.
All right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's very exciting. Love this book. It is so good. Before we let you go, though, anything else you want to plug? Obviously, people should be checking out Storm, but any other titles or things people should take a look at?
Mostly Storm. Make sure you follow Thunder War. So I really want this book to like sell big numbers. I really want to prove that Storm can be a big seller. Storm can carry an event. We can tell big epic stories like Secret Wars again. And stuff like that. So yeah, awesome. Like everything, my energy, my everything is totally invested into Thunder War right now.
Awesome. I cannot wait to check it out.
Yeah.
Like we said a million times, we have been loving this book. It's so good. So keep it up, and congratulations on everything.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for your support. I've been appreciating the reviews. I love the show. I'm a big fan.
Right. I got you, man. Thank you so much.
Go crazy. We got you.
Yeah.
All right. Have a great night.
Later.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
All right, there we go. Once again, that was Murewa Ayodele. He is the writer of Storm. Storm number 10 comes out July 23rd, so plenty of time to tell your comic book shop you want a copy. Let them know.
Yeah.
One of the best X books on the stands right now. I mean, we glowed that up so much, but it's because it's so great.
Yeah. And there's another great book that we're going to talk about tonight.
Yes.
Two guests that are behind the scenes on that. It is called Super Visible, the story of the women of Marvel Comics. It's out in stores on June 24th from Simon & Schuster, and it is phenomenal. So good.
Yeah, it is.
Ladies and gentlemen, Margaret Stohl and Jeanine Schaefer, welcome to the show.
Hello. Welcome. How are you? Yeah.
So excited to talk about this. This book is literally and figuratively huge, and I have so many questions about it.
You have it right here.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
When we first got the pictures of it, we were like, show us the spine, it's huge, it's so heavy.
And I think we used like a third.
Oh, wow.
That's crazy.
Like 700 to 800 pages of transcripts that we started with.
Oh my God! That's
So
so
I'm
much.
gonna give an overview and then please correct any details that I get wrong. But just for our viewers and listeners, watchers. There you go. That's a Marvel thing. That was
Yeah,
based
that's
on
somewhere.
Marvel.
It's a huge moment.
It's cool.
Yep.
That was not a mistake. That
It's,
was on
it's
purpose.
a moment of galactic impact. The Watchers are here.
So this started out with the Women in Marvel podcast, which is lauded, rewarded, awesome, been running for a long time. Eventually, you'll fill in this part, I assume, but like eventually the idea came about a book, and what we ended up with a couple of years later now is this incredible document that is a combination. There are some oral histories and just transcripts directly from the podcast in the book, but it's a whole lot more than that. It's not just here's the podcast in print form. You're also telling the whole history of women in Marvel Comics, and I hesitate to say even like an alternate history of Marvel Comics, but the way that you certainly address it, like a lot of the forward-facing history of Marvel Comics has been male. It has been like, there are these great men that created it, but this is pretending, actually, there are a lot of incredible women, non-binary people, others who haven't even necessarily been behind the scenes, but in front of the scenes as well, who have made this brand, made this whole phenomenon what it is. And that comes out through these really in-depth histories from taken not just from the podcast, but a lot of different sources. You have some beautiful pictures in there. And to slightly contradict what I said before, one of the things that I loved about the book the most is it's not just like, there's a great section on Louise Simonson, for example, but it's not just like, here's a great section on Louise Simonson. It's also, there's a great section on one of our good friends on the show, Jed Grunwald, and what she does behind the scenes. Yeah. And it goes back and forth from the beginnings of Marvel Comics to include the TV shows and the movies and everything. So again, that's sort of like the basis of what I was taking away from it. But the main thing while I was reading is like, where do you even start with this? What is the first conversation?
What a
like,
good question.
Podcast, book.
No.
How do you get from one to the other?
I think it's fair to note, I think we used one interview from the podcast.
Yeah.
And had we included the podcast, the book would have been a 10-volume series. It really got that done. Really, the podcast is how we met. That was part of it. And Jeanine and Judy were together in the Women in Marvel panels that started happening at San Diego Comic-Con.
Cons,
And Judy specifically worked quite a bit on the Women of Marvel podcast, and I had gone on with Judy. But we sort of all had a different experience at Marvel, and I was a writer, and that's what I did. So Jeanine was an editor forever.
Yeah.
And we kind of brought those lenses with us. But no, God forbid, had we been using the podcast, it would have been 14 of these.
So almost every oral history that is in there is actually from a transcript that was done during the research and making of this book. So I think there's one or two that are pulled from the podcast because timing didn't work to actually interview that
Trina,
person.
because she died.
Yeah.
One historian particularly.
But we tried to do a lot from the actual like now of comics.
Yeah.
What does it look like now for women in comics? And also, like, I think where we got to was we started out, we used to joke about, okay, so what's the story? Like, what's the one story that we can tell? And we kind of came around to, there isn't one story. And so what we really wanted to do was to make it feel, just even amongst the three of us, there was not one story. So we really wanted to make you feel like you understood what it was like to be there.
Yeah.
Right. And, to be there as an editor, or be there as a writer, to be there as an artist, to be there in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, all the way up to now.
Yeah.
And so that was really the whole thing. And so it feels like you felt that. And I think that's what's really cool. And I think it's going to be surprising for people.
Yeah.
That level of intimacy that is here.
And even one of the big things that I think creates that intimacy are the photos in here.
Yeah.
And it's striking. Like, I can't imagine how you could gather these photos. They feel so personal. They feel like snapshots from a lost roll of film. Like, how did you ever find all of this?
Yeah.
They were. We we interviewed, like, we have hundreds of hours of these Zoom interviews with like women in retirement communities who are like, if I can just get someone to help me with the box.
The box is on the high shelf. Can we get it down?
Judy went and Judy went to upstate New York and, visited some of these women and were able to go through their files and their boxes and put stuff out, take pictures, scan them. Judy really was she's a producer. So, she was a real, able to dig through all of this stuff. She had a ton of photographer contacts, and doing that, she was able to find the photographer who knew the photographer who's there.
Wow.
So we got access to all of this stuff. Jerry Duggan is actually a huge photographer as well. So we were able to get, he was amazing. Let us look through all of his film of everything he shot from Marvel retreats and conventions and stuff like that. But it was cool looking through scrapbooks. Like, we have all these scrapbooks from people who were in the 80s and their handwritten notes of the ill-fated women in comics panel was my favorite.
Oh, that's so cool.
Handwritten note that was next to the photo of them on a panel.
They were the best, like the sort of baller, these the 3 martini lunch women from the 60s. And they were like, oh my God, you would not believe, the shit we went through. But there'll be the woman who wrote her way into comics by compulsively writing letters to the editor and going to early Comic-Cons in her little dress and a suit outfit. There are so many stories of the women who wrote to Stan and the famous heifers in the bullpen letter. We named a chapter afterwards. She's like, Stan, I know you don't have heifers in the bullpen, but hear me out. And it's always his gal Friday who fishes those letters out and is like, come on, Stan, let's give her a shot.
Well, and that is one of the things that I find so interesting is, I used to hear a lot during my career, well, we'd love to hire women, but they're just not applying, where do we find them? And I'm like, well, just look around, and if you don't have a person in the building who is looking out for them, you're not going to see them. But these women have been here, and this was something that, Margie, this was the theme of the book was about making this stuff visible that has actually always been here.
Well, and I feel like it undercuts so many cliches of comic fans too, even beyond who you're talking about, people that are creating the comics. But there's a quote that stuck out to me that was in the 60s, it was just as likely that a young girl will be reading comics as a young boy. And I was like, that's something that's been erased from what we think about comics. And that's crazy.
Yep.
No, until the Comics Code and people had to, and the books became much choosier about how many you could release and what could be out there. There were absolutely as many women reading comics as men in the funny papers. But that came up time and again. It was really interesting.
Another thing that I thought was pretty great about the book, obviously you all have worked for Marvel. We all love Marvel and talk about it all the time, but you somewhat expect something like this to be Marvel propaganda, hooray Marvel, everything's great, but it doesn't necessarily shy away from some more complicated topics. For example, this was such a little thing, but I was really looking forward to the section on the women in comics panels because I've talked to so many people that have this frustration that comes out. I think it's Gail Simone says it in the book, where she's like, why can't we just do a panel? Why can't we just do a panel anymore? But then talks about people still come up afterwards and talk about it and say, wow, this really inspired me to get in comics. So that's the smaller thing, but I think there are things peppered throughout the books that don't shy away from the things that are harder topics to talk about. Was there any sort of pushback from Simon & Schuster or Marvel on that, or was it free reign?
Well, I agree. What is out there in the book is because it's been 5 years. We've worked on this forever, right? So we've lost all sense of space and time. When we finally looked through it, the weight of it, literally, but really the weight of it was shocking to me. And Marvel's not really known for candor. As a big brand, and I'm kind of shocked by the story we were able to tell, and I think that's more about Marvel Comics Marvel Comics is more candid than Marvel Studios. I think that's it's a nichier historically comics will sort of tell you more stories. And I think that was sort of part of it. We ultimately we did a cut of the book that focuses much more on Marvel Comics. Mm-hmm. And so there is a ton of stuff that's not in the book, to be totally fair, but it was more of a categorical cut that was like, all right, like we're focusing on comics, because we could have done as much as we wrote more on studios and another whole book on games. Marvel Games has so much going on. And I have a background in game development. So like we had all kinds of access and stories there. So like there really were so many volumes of this book. It sort of came down to the one we could all agree on, focused on Marvel Comics.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that comes through, and maybe this is a minor thing, maybe it's not, but I was looking back, it was announced in 2021 on the cover, which on the Marvel.com announcement is like not the final cover, but it's a very typical, like, I think Captain Marvel is on the front and she's making a fist and you got the superheroes, and we're looking, this is again for our listeners, but we're looking at the cover here, and I do think this cover tells a very different story with the Invisible Woman saying the Invisible Girl can do better. You have sort of almost trapped in these panels here while the various other things are trying to break out in different ways. I mean, how much input did you have on the cover? How important was that? And how much is that telling the story, the difference between those two?
Jeanine is so good at covers. Can I just tell you? She went so hard.
I really did. I've made a lot of covers. I've done a lot of covers over 20 years. You get really good at it. They when I got brought on, that was one of the first things, was to sit down and talk about what is this book actually, right? Mm-hmm. And the first look that we have at it, what do we want it to say? So I'm so thrilled to hear that reaction. Yeah. Because this was a very deliberate pivot that the whole creative team made and the editorial team made together to say, we're gonna totally change this. There's a market for this type of book, and we need to make sure that the people who want this type of book will understand that that's what it is. So actually, I think it was we found this panel going through some of the original Fantastic Four stuff when we were looking for art to use on the inside. And we fished it out and said, this is good. This is the piece that it needs to be built around.
That's awesome. The book reminds me of the SNL book Live from New York, where it like you get like so many little bits and pieces and exposed. You get to look in through so many windows. Yeah. What were some of the moments as you were putting this together that just like stick out to you right now, or just like were mind blowing when you were working on it?
I think X-Men animated series is definitely one chapter.
Yeah, that was unbelievable.
Right?
I was so moved when I read that. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. And that's, when everyone ended up talking about the thing that got them into comics, or the thing that they liked about comics. And for a certain generation, that show, X-Men the Animated Series, was such a...
That was it.
Piece. And finding out about Margaret Loesch, finding out about Julia Leewald, finding out about Stephanie Graziano, like that actually it was this team of women.
Yeah, if you didn't read that chapter yet, which I know you will turn to now and read because it's so compelling, is like, and really the great things about the book are, it's not us like talking, it's like the like secrets and mysteries we found, but following the story of, because it was kids television, they let a woman be in charge of Fox because no one else wanted that job. And because Julia Leewald was married to a writer on the X-Men animated series, she could also, get a gig writing on the series. And because Stephanie Graziano, I think also, wasn't it, her husband worked on the animation side in the production in the art house. So you had these like influences coming in from all sides and then you had Chris Claremont who writes women like phenomenally, who will take a big stage and will like collaborate with those kind of characters. And they all committed to this kind of television that really wasn't done at the time in animation, and for kids in particular, which were like telling these sequential continuing saga stories.
Dense getting
and then
into
that
stuff.
moment where they get it back and it's bad. And Margaret Loesch makes this baller decision to like scrap it. Like we're not doing this until we land it.
Yeah.
It was very cool. And so when you read through this and then you get to the interview with Margaret Loesch, you're like, but it was really the beginning of 4-quadrant Marvel Studios.
Right. Yes.
And I think so for me personally, I was the X-Men editor for a while. I was the Wolverine editor for a while. X-Men the animated series and X-Men in general those were my formative kid years, reading comics and getting into comics. And so my daughter is now obsessed with X-Men.
Nice.
Not only is
Very cool.
she's watching she's on the last 3 episodes of the 92 X-Men the animated series right now. Then she's wanting to know more, so she's going back. She's reading all the Claremont books. She's reading all.
Wow!
And she's getting her friends into it. and it really holds up.
Yeah.
Because it is. They said this is the way that we're doing it. So that was really cool. Oh, and there was a little bit in there also. There was a woman on the standards and practices side at Fox. And she was getting through all of these things that, S&P normally would be like, no, you can't do that. And she was like, no, we're going to figure it out how to make sure the Wolverine's claws can come out. And, this stuff. So that was so cool, just down to the last woman,
Yeah. And then it's cool because we had a really long interview with Dan Buckley, who doesn't do a lot of interviews.
Right.
And he was like, who's great? Margaret Loesch. You should talk to her. And we're like, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Very funny.
Yeah. It was
Obviously, both of you have had very long comics careers as well, but I have to imagine doing this book caused a fair amount of self-reflection in terms of your place in the industry and going forward. What was your takeaway? Like, what were you like before doing this book, and now 5 years later, how do you feel about the place that you are now?
personally or women in comics?
Yeah, personally.
That's a really interesting question. I think, okay, so I'm originally a novelist, like a prose novelist, and I've worked with Marvel in games and in prose and in comics, right? Ongoing and mini. And I feel like this book is like the pride I feel for it. And I say a lot that books have different kinds of success, but this book is I'm so proud of it in a way that has just nothing to do with me at all. Like, it's such a special collection of these like women whose voices really were going to be lost, because there isn't like an archive that, or like this book was almost impossible for us to do. Like this, if you didn't have 3 people willing to take it on for 5 years, you weren't going to have it. And I feel so proud that the thing we set out to do, which was really just a snapshot of like, they were there, like just they were there. Like, that's it. That's the whole like premise, is just capturing like the invisible work that you didn't necessarily see on the covers. And we absolutely did that. So I didn't reflect so much about like myself in it. This in a way was like the least about me of 15 or 16 books. But it's weirdly one of the ones I'm the most proud of, if you can, like, I don't know how to describe that better.
Yeah, no, I think that makes total sense. The absolutely feel so much pride, I know we all say, you know, comics will break your heart, and they absolutely will and do. And I think for me, this was a huge like processing sort of moment for me. You know, I left Marvel in 2015. And I think the idea of like, oh, I was there.
Yeah.
Right. Like I was there. And that was like a huge sort of processing moment for me. And it felt like I could see myself now in the, not to say a cliche, but like in the tapestry of all of the other women who were there and how all of our stories fit together, even though they're all very different. So that was that was a really cool moment for me, for sure.
Yes. It was for me, there was one personal moment, which was we did like 2 days of interviews with Kelly Thompson, who's fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
And we ended up in this one conversation where she was like, Margie, like 1 year we were both in the creative council and it was so amazing in the summit. And the next year I came back and you were gone. And I was back, I was like the only girl. And there was this 1 year when we were both there and like, did I take your spot? Right? It was like such a like amazing conversation to have on the record in a book, like it's about getting women into that room or what it feels like to be in that room. And of course not, she's fantastic, but it was like, it was all very cathartic.
It was cathartic is a great word.
Yeah.
Great word.
And now I will ask you the general question as well, and thank you for all of that. But now that you do have this span of history, that's not just your own personal history or what's been shared with you on the job, now you have the entire, 60, 65, 80 year history? It's a long time. What do you see in terms of... This is the stupidest, I feel stupid saying this, but the span of women in comics just in terms of progression. Do you feel like there was a progression and openness from what we were talking about in the 1960s, that moment that has been erased, the way that Justin was referring to where we are now? And are things progressing beyond that?
That was a conversation that came up a lot. Like, is this a win? Is it a partial victory? What is the state of women in comics? And I think we don't really have a set answer, because I think that we put this way sort of at the end, which is like, it's a journey, right? And journeys, the thing about journeys is they change. So it's sort of a moving story that's a live story and is still going on. But we've definitely seen for women in comics, it has been a journey from being like a side character and a side panel to like the center of the page. And for women readers and women creators and women members of the Marvel community, like that, the journey to seeing yourself as a hero, as the center of a story, is a big, big journey. So we feel the fact that, these women are now like, their voices are so clearly like anchored in the book. For us, like, I think that just more conversation on the topic and, more curriculums that pick up a book like this and see it, getting it on more library shelves so that more high school juniors go like, no shit, I could do that. Well, that's adding Sue to the front of the book so that you would know she was a girl.
Yep.
Right. Those are big moments for the female fandom in comics in general, Marvel or not.
Yeah. Well, I like what this book does is it puts everything on the table, puts so much on the table for people to take in and then they think about. They have the answer comes to them, as opposed to you being like, actually here it's about 80% good. It's like, well, I don't know. Like you give people a rich tapestry, I think is the word you used, to take from and to just think about. And I think that's the best way to give a gift to the reader on the way out the door.
Oh, thanks. Thank you for saying that.
We usually have questions in the comments. This is more of a statement in the comment, but I wanted to bring it up anyway. Derek says this would make a great documentary. Obviously, you were aiming for the book, but was there any thought there about translating this to other mediums?
One of the things of working with Marvel is you get the piece of Marvel you get, right? Like, so yes, Marvel, you absolutely should do that. It would be Mad Men, basically, but,
right,
with nerds in comics. We had a great line. Someone was like, you think the 60s was Republicans and hippies, but it was really Republicans, hippies, and nerds.
Yeah.
Right.
Great.
But it's they totally should. It's also the story of women coming to New York to get jobs, and sort of like, it's really the story of New York City. It's a story. It is a very Mad Men-y story for at least 20 years, and the 80s part of it is kind of wild too. It's weird to see how many times Marvel went out of business and reinvented itself, and sort of the changing, guard in the soap opera. It's been a hard story to talk about for women because it's messy, as we've said, because it's a lot of wives and girlfriends and, the way you find yourself into that niche role. But it doesn't mean that you're contribution was less, legitimate. In fact, this is not in the book, but we had one question we like to ask people of like, would Marvel have a female editor-in-chief, or why haven't they, or could you imagine what would that look like? And so many people very specifically mentioned Mackenzie Cadenhead, who famously left being an editor and was a fantastic editor and went to become a writer. And Dan Buckley, her husband, runs Marvel Entertainment. But like, there are so many messy stories of these like truly immensely talented women who mentored other women and really like opened all these doors, but they're messy,
And one other thing, I mean, just sort of bouncing off what you're saying, that I do want to mention for anybody who's interested in the book that I thought was so fantastic. A lot of times from panels or just public facing things, you get jobs in comics are, you can be a writer, you could be an artist, you could be editor, because that's who is in front of you. But reading this book, you see so many other parts of the machine, and you give them such a wonderful focus there. I know I mentioned Jen, who's the trades editor, but I think that's even that is something that people don't necessarily think about as, oh, that's a career path. That's something that I can do and maybe excel at. And I just think that's great as well. That's all.
Jen is one of the most respected women in the building. That was clear from everyone we spoke to. I think when we spoke to her, she did not realize she was the most senior one on the Marvel staff.
Yeah.
I mean, she definitely knows that, I think. Just so, yes.
But yes, great. It's great. You are going to be touring around a little bit for the book. Is that right?
We are. If anyone is in Brooklyn, come out. That's next Monday on the 23rd. We are with Shannon Hale in Salt Lake City. I am on Wednesday, the 25th. Omaha with Rainbow Rowell on Sunday, the 29th. We'll be in Santa Monica the week before Comic-Con and at Comic-Con in San Diego.
Awesome.
And there's a couple other events coming out in the fall that are still being organized, but yeah, we're super happy to celebrate this.
Yeah,
as you should be. Congratulations, and also the 5 years of work that you put in really shows, and it's unbelievable and so moving, and it's just thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, congratulations on the book. Have a great night, and looking forward to the tour.
All right,
thanks for having us.
Good luck out there.
Bye.
So great.
All right, there we go. Once again, the book is called Super Visible, The Story of the Women of Marvel Comics. It's coming out June 24th from Simon & Schuster. So order it or pick it up next week at your local bookstore, because it's
definitely worth it.
Amazing.
Great big book. Nice big book.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
and we didn't even mention they got everybody. Like, if you if you could think of a name in Marvel writing, art, editing, behind the scenes, TV, movies, whatever. They're not all in there because, like they said, there's a lot of material that didn't make it, but they talk to everybody. It's bananas.
And it's really it's a beautiful book. We didn't get to this really, but the pictures are so great. But the mix of the comic art and the selections of comic art they made are so great too. And it really, they do a great job of balancing the art and the pictures in a really smart way that keeps As
someone who leans more towards pictures, I was very moved. But also
over words, you mean, Pete?
Yeah. But the time capsule of it was kind of like going back in time. I mean, the pictures of the bullpen and stuff back then, it was really...
Well, Pete, have you seen pictures before?
No.
They're a lot
brand
like
new to me.
You should see old pictures of you.
Oh,
that's like going back in time.
I don't think they exist. But yeah, it's really impressively put together and such an amazing package.
It's great. And we are going to move on with our next section, which is my favorite section because you all make it up. It is your audience questions. And for audience questions, all you got to do is drop a question in the comments, and we will get to them. That's how we do it.
We'll get to them. That's nice.
What are you guys drinking? You want to talk about that? Pete, you showed off an interesting beer earlier. What's going on?
Fresh can for PLP.
I got my Conezilla here. Still drinking my variety pack. Just repping the Zilla a little bit. You know what I mean?
You're repping Godzilla is starting.
Well, Godzilla's in comics right now, hard, and I'm very excited. So I'm repping it, man.
I'm just worried if you get too big, you might wreck a town or a village.
Yeah, exactly.
And Justin, what about you?
I had a tequila and Aperol with a sage simple syrup that I made and some lime juice that was lovely.
Awesome.
And now I'm prepping my body for the 4th of July with a little Bad Blue.
There you go. There you go. Come on, man.
Excellent. Well, we don't have any questions yet, but what do you guys want to talk about? What's going on? What's going on in your lives?
Oh, that's nice.
I had a fun, weird moment. I don't spend a lot of time outside in the woods when I was living in New York City. So I had a funny moment where I was outside of my yard and there was a woodpecker. And do you ever notice how like a woodpecker kind of sounds like the predator noise a little bit, And I jumped because I was like, holy shit, the predator's behind me. And I was like, I got to stop watching this Hulu series.
Let me ask you, Pete, are you sure it was a woodpecker or do you have a predator infestation?
And are you sure it's a series or it's a movie? You keep calling it a series.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
It's a series of scenes.
I watched it so many times.
It's actually a series of pictures. I know you said you haven't seen pictures, but it's several pictures in a row to make a moving image. Some sort of movie, if you will. Schreikler says, what would you dedicate 5 years of your life to researching?
Oh, wow.
I'd love to dedicate 5 years of my life to researching the first 5 years of Comic Book Club.
All right. I was going to say as a corollary that it needs to be something where you're not allowed to see the fruits of it until 5 years later.
Yeah, I hate fruits.
Yeah. Research for 5 years.
See the fruits of it. I mean, are we staying in the comic book world, or are we just going anywhere?
Absolutely anything.
I guess we can go anywhere.
Yeah.
This is a nerdy answer, but I am a big silent film fan. So I would do a deep dive on. There's plenty of this already done in the world, but Charlie Chaplin or Buster Keaton, some of those filmmakers would be something I would like to get into.
Oh, wow.
I probably some sort of food stuff, like maybe Oreos. I could really get into Oreos and look into them for 5 years.
5 years, Alex? I think that's
Oreos.
I'd embed myself in the factory. I'd dress up as an Oreo so they wouldn't see me in the corner there.
When you said I'd embed myself, I thought you meant you would get into bed and eat Oreos.
If you dress up as an Oreo, you don't think they would notice you? They would be like, who's that guy dressed like it? It doesn't make you invisible.
No, if they asked me, I'd be like, I'm an Oreo. Don't worry about it.
No, that's the thing. They would be like, sir, you can't dress like an Oreo and walk around.
I'm not a sir.
You need a badge.
I'm
you can't just go.
A badge? But, guys, you don't need a badge. None of you know.
You get in the Oreo factory? You haven't even been there. You don't know. You need an ID.
Yeah, everyone there's like a U.S. Marshal.
Yep.
No, I think, Alex, going to the Oreo factory, you could probably wrap up your research in like a week to 9 days. I think you'd be good.
Probably 5 years of your life. That's hard. Pete, what about you?
Oh, man. I would like to dedicate 5 years to, maybe trying to make a big deal out of bringing Mary Jane and Peter back together in Spider-Man.
Great news, Pete. You already did that. You've done it.
For 10 years, 15 years, something like that.
Yeah, and most research is just saying the same thing over and over again.
Yep. That's how they did that book we were just talking about. Derek Maynard says, any thoughts of a CBC book?
Big time.
Yes.
Big time thoughts.
Thoughts. All right. Michael Tillman says, halfway through the year-ish, favorite title and or single issues so far?
Oh, that's a tough one. It's a little bit recency bias, but Storm's up there.
Storm is definitely up there. Absolute, one of the absolute books, whether it's Wonder Woman or Batman, for sure.
Those are pretty great. I would definitely throw out there Assorted Crisis Events. That book has been phenomenal and just very, very timely. What else? The problem is at the end of the year, I look back through every single stack we've ever done, and I'm like, oh yeah, that book was great.
It's hard because we're pleasantly drowning in it, like some sort of money bin situation. But that we swim through.
What's the name of the Kyle Starks book about the two serial killers competing to see who could kill the most people?
Oh yeah, that one's really fucked up and good. What is that?
I'm really enjoying that one.
Is that the long grave one? No.
No. It's
that's
like Kill Them All or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Or You're All Gonna Die. All of these titles, they're all blending into one.
Yes,
Gotta come
they're
up with
all
better
blending
titles.
one great murder story.
Also, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Stanley says, have you been to any red carpet movie premieres? Do they seem fun to you? I have, and they are not.
No, they are not fun.
Yes, they are. It depends on your role, I guess.
Sure.
But trying to do anything.
Working them is not fun.
One year, this was for, I want to say, the Streamy Awards, and they spent a lot of money on this. It was before it was competing.
Wait, didn't
with
you
the
just
Webby
win a
Awards.
Streamy Award?
No, I won a podcast that I do coming soon. Won a Tribeca Film Festival.
Oh,
Hey, congratulations.
Best fictional podcast.
Hey.
So not competing with us because this is nonfiction. None of this.
No, we
this
script
is real.
We script this.
What? Yeah, we
I haven't been
ridiculously
getting
write this.
scripts.
Yeah, I said
but I was
this every
gonna
week.
Years ago, Alden Ford and I we booked a job.
You talking about the Verizon guy?
Verizon guy does the voice of Verizon currently. We booked a web series sponsored by Trident Gum.
Oh, I remember that.
We
That was
shot
awesome.
a bit. Yeah, it might still be online if you want to look at A Very Young Me with Shannon Doherty, Milo Ventimiglia, and some other people. We shot something on the red carpet at the Streamy Awards, bothering David Wayne. And the beauty of it was he was actually annoyed.
Oh, fun. What a bit.
What a great idea.
Yeah, they're just they're loud chaos constantly is pretty much what it is. It's a lot of screaming. There's like a lot of energy there, so that's nice. But yeah, it's just loud and chaotic and PR agents grabbing people and taking them
people
everywhere.
freaking
And
out and-
the stars, like, I don't think I've ever been to a carpet where the stars know where they're going. They're just sort of wandering around like deer in headlights. So there you go.
It's an event that always seems organized, but it's actually pure chaos all the time.
But then, like, also there is the fun, I will say, of watching a movie, or I've been to plenty more TV premieres where you're watching it with the cast and the audience, and that's certainly fun. So it definitely heightens things up because people are reacting more because the cast is in there with you. So
7 minutes standing ovation.
7 minutes for Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Frederico Rosa says, what are your favorites and least favorites comic saga that come out mostly because of movie TV show release? Something like Summer of Superman and Civil War 2.
Ooh, tough question. That's like being like, what are these things that are blatant tie-ins that are actually good?
Yeah, not Civil War 2.
Yeah.
Summer of Superman so far has been pretty good. I don't think it's more of a capsule about, hey, we're pushing Superman right now. But all the Superman titles are pretty good.
You guys keep harking on Hattush, and I'm trying to be the one who's hyping it up, and that's been
sorry,
brutal.
what movie or TV show release does that tie into?
Well, it's a kind of a big comic
Oh,
saga.
you just wanted to bring up
Batman's always doing
I'll
something.
mention one that I know you like that we didn't like, Pete, but you were super into, was the Aquaman 2 movie special that DC released. You love that.
Yeah.
Well, I think one thing we've been
That's right.
talking about is that comics have been pretty bad lately because so much they'll release a title that ties into a movie, but it's a deep continuity dive often. So like a new reader's going to be completely at odds with it when it comes in. But this is also recent, but the Thunderbolts book that came out and is still coming out with Bucky at the Winter Soldier at the helm, I think has been very good. Mm-hmm. And that was a sort of tie-in, but is actually telling a great story.
And we got one more here. This is from Stray Bullet. Andor finale thoughts. I don't remember if you talked about it. I believe we talked about it on Week in Geek, right?
I believe we did as well, but to talk about it here, fantastic. All good across the board.
Really? Is there any action, or is it all just like high drama where they're just
How are you not watching? How are you not watching this?
Dude, I told you I stopped watching after her drunken dance move thing that just kind of really lost me, where I was like, I'm not watching anything that's fun anymore. I want to see some lightsabers. I want to see some action, a little pew-pew, nothing. It's like I'm watching some lady get drunk at a work function, and I'm not having fun.
Yeah, I'm over here trying to eat my big pile of nerds, and somebody's trying to feed me steak for dinner.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. It's the best top to bottom production on television.
Does it get any better than that, or am I not go back for it?
Here's the thing. It's hard for me to speak from inside your brain. Like, I'll put on my P glasses every now and again, and the world looks fucked up through your eyes, you know? So
I don't have good vision. So
yeah,
that's
exactly. That's what I'm talking about. And I mean both vision and vision. But Andor is the best. It does get better. There is a lot of action later on, better in quotes, because it was amazing top to bottom.
Just wanted to bring up this comment from Michael Tillman. The Terrigen Mist's inhumanity really played into the Inhumans thing in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., maybe an attempt to replace the whole mutant thing. It was bad. There's been so much behind the scenes talked about that, and we don't know what actually is true or not. Like, the popular theory was they didn't want to do X-Men because X-Men were with Fox, so they pivoted to the Inhumans and pushed those hard in the comics. Again, we don't know if that's true. I will agree with you that the whole Terrigen Mist thing was not great, but it did give us Miss Marvel. So that is, I think, a net win overall.
Well, and honestly, like I sort of liked the idea of it, like the idea that like something came through and activated all these regular people who were latently superpowered is cool. I think the whole thing just stunk of we're replacing the X-Men for TV. And I think that they were like, we're not doing that. But I think they were doing it. They were trying it. They were like casting it out, and they were like, what if this works? And it was like, oh, it's not? Oh, it's not at all. Oh, and everyone hates this too. Okay. Throws fishing pole into water. No, abandons pole completely.
Oh, okay. Throw the pole in the water, burn the fishing boat, kill the worms, just stamp on them.
Dang.
Embed themselves with Oreos.
Yes, there you go.
In a bed.
And that is it for your audience questions. We're going to move on with our next section, which is trivia. And for that, we're going to turn it over to Pete LePage.
Oh, man. You sure that's a good idea?
Pooch.
All right, this is the part we give back to you, the lovely audience. It's an opportunity to win $25 free to Midtown Comics Online. Because if you had $25, you'd probably want to get some comics for yourself. All we need is a first hand up, a pick me, or a hey, I read comics, something in the old chat.
Little pick me girl. That's the kind of person we want.
Or just I read comics.
Yeah. Or me read comics.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Me hungry, me eat comic.
Yes. Don't ever eat your comics.
Darndest thing, I can't get through the bags.
It's no nutritional.
No, you got to open the poly bag before you eat the comic.
I try to gnaw my way through, and I eat the comic, and I try to nibble on the little back, the bone, the board.
Hey, we got Scheuchler is going to do it.
Hey, the show.
I'll have a bash, he says. A little British accent.
Okay, great. Today's trivia is about Battle Beast and a small nod to the legend Morris the Alligator. R.I.P. Can't believe you ate Chubbs' hand. Please listen to all three options before making your selection. Here we go. Question number 1. What was the first appearance of Battle Beast? Was it A, Invincible number 19? B, come on, make up your mind already. C, Tony Kenny.
And I just want to mention here on Twitch, Eric MCI900, who I believe played last week, if I remember, says, I'm here to say that this is a real thing. For years, you may have wondered if the Midtown Comics gift certificate was just hype, but no, believe.
It's real.
It's
believe.
real. At one point, Pete, I remember, accused me of embezzling the Midtown Comics cards, which I do. Schreckler says, hey.
Seems like you're still holding a grudge about it. Yes, that's correct.
I don't remember every horrible thing you've ever said to me, Pete.
Yeah, when will we air our grudges? Do we have a segment for that?
Shout out to Kenny Cords, by the way.
Yeah, we're doing the State of Grudges, I believe, next week.
All right, question number 2. What is Battle Beast's real name? Is it A, Thok, B, Harry Carey, or C, Terry Carey?
While we're waiting for the answer, Michael Tillman says, weren't you embezzling them and turning them into Long John Silver's food?
That's true. That's true,
that
Michael
is
Tillman.
not true.
He was definitely doing that. You had some kind of kickback with Long John Silver, because one time I visited you and you were just
He
needy
loves
for
fish,
Long
yeah,
John
fried
Silver.
fish.
Yeah.
Yeah, you invented a device that turns money into Long John Silver's
Yeah.
gift cards, right?
Turns it back into fish.
It's like crypto. You're
like
mining Long John Silver's gift cards, right? Using a lot of resources, I will say.
Teach a man to fish, and God, that's boring. Turn money into fish? Oh yeah, here we go. That's
You pour tartar sauce into a computer and it spits out a Long John Silver's card, I believe.
Strickler says, Thok, was that the answer?
That is correct, yes.
Oh, okay.
Really nice.
All right, great. Here we go. Last one. Where is Battle Beast from? Is it A, Kirkman's Nightmares, B, Planet Dorn, or C, Wally High?
What the hell? Is this a B answer?
Weird.
A letter we haven't heard in years? Not to take it away from Scheukler, but
Yeah.
I think we have a B.
Is it B?
Yeah, that is correct. It is B. Yes.
Oh. Somebody was
Holy
tired this week.
shit. What happened?
Schleicher, congratulations. You are getting a gift card to Midtown Comics.
Trick question.
Email and
Schleicher, you beat the system.
Get it to you. What secret movie are you referencing? Peter?
Of course, we're talking about the 1998 sequel, Blues Brothers 2000.
Of course
Nice.
we are.
Wait, who is the person you are honoring?
Morris the Alligator.
Wow, I can't believe we let that go.
Yeah, I know. You guys are slipping, man.
Sure are.
He just
we're
died, or she?
This
Or
year.
is it an
yeah.
alligator? Is that an
Yeah.
alligator?
Yeah, from Happy
So
Gilmore.
I'm sorry,
remember?
your list of dead people that is so packed that you're months behind includes
Yeah.
an alligator.
Yeah.
Great, really great. How are you tracking the pet deaths? Man, yes.
Well, when they're in the movies and they're famous, I mean, come on, they're a big part of
Famous?
it.
Do you have some sort of alert on death itself? Do you ride in a sidecar with the Grim Reaper as they're cutting down?
Maybe.
Every Tuesday afternoon, Aubrey Plaza comes by Pete's place and is like, so sorry I was late. This is from a couple of months ago, but an alligator died, and I thought you'd be interested.
I want to say thank you, Aubrey Plaza. I'm a big fan of your work.
That's really nice. A big comment from Stanley that I think really reflects the show. Pete is slowly losing his mind. And
I don't
it's
think
a perfect
slowly.
statement. Is slowly is the only thing I would
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's been happening.
As we
for
all know,
weeks.
new comics come out tomorrow. What are you guys looking forward to, Pete?
Of course, I'm looking forward to Battle Beast #2 and Godzilla vs. Avengers #1. Come out.
Oh, God. The Godzilla hype. I'm looking forward to Aliens vs. Avengers #4. I've loved this series. The Assad Ribish art is so good.
Man.
The third issue really leaned into Mr. Sinister in like a sort of like maybe too hard way. So
Yeah,
I'm
too hard. Too hard, bro.
curious how we're gonna bring that all together. And then I won't take a book that Alex is definitely going to recommend because I'm a friend, and that's what friends do.
Oh, wow.
So Alex can say it in 30 seconds. Shout out to Bug Wars #5, though. Been really enjoying that book. Jason Aaron could take anything and make it into a giant fantasy epic, and that's what he's done here. These are bugs in the front yard just fighting. Let them fight.
I think this is a perfect opportunity for a friend test right here. Why don't you guys, both at the count of 3, say the comic you guys think the other one is talking about. You ready?
Okay, wait, hold on. Let me look again one more time. Okay, got it.
It could be
got it.
one of two, so I'm not quite sure.
Great.
Okay, ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Star
I was a
Trek
fashion
Omega.
school.
Oh, no, wait, that was going to be the second one. That was the second one. So you're right. You're right. The first one I was going to say was Star Trek Omega. I've really been
That's
loving
fair.
the Lore War
course,
crossover, and this
yeah.
is the end
Lore
of
War.
IDW's this part of the Star Trek universe. So excited to see how that turns out. And the other one is I Was a Fashion School Serial Killer from Image Comics. This book is so twisted and messed up about exactly what the title says, but I am having a blast reading it, so excited to check that out. And all of those titles and many more are going to be in our Stock podcast Wednesday at 9 a.m. in the Stack feed and the Comic Book Club feed. And folks, that is it for this week's show. A couple of people we want to thank. We want to thank Margaret Stohl and Jeanine Schaefer for coming on to talk about Super Visible, the story of the women of Marvel Comics, and Murewa Ayodele for talking about Storm. Check out Thunder War coming up.
Great books, both.
Announced this week a couple of weeks ago, but for real this time, next week on the show, Max Hoven is going to be here to talk about Our Love Unrest, and Jordan D. White is going to be back on the show.
We'll see.
We'll talk about Marvel's Venom, and the return of Null is coming back in Venom 250, so big topic of conversation there.
We have missed Null.
White.
Yes. Comic Book Club News, our daily news podcast. Check that out Monday through Friday, patreon.com/Comic Book Club to support this show and all the shows we do. You can subscribe on Apple, Android, Spotify, or the app of your choice, comicbookclublive.com. For this podcast and many more, I don't know if he is bringing his ukulele, but until next time, we'll see you at the Comic Book Club.
Come back and find out next week.
Thanks, everybody.
And occasionally they'll let that special guest speak. So grab your written hammer, don't be late for it, 'cause their girlfriends can barely tolerate it. Comic Book Club, Comic Book Club, Comic Book Club.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Dude, what's your deal with the otter, bro?
Click to subscribe.